A compelling detective story, a cloak and dagger action, and a romantic drama, all these stories were taken from real life. The history of Kazakhstan is inseparable from the world history. Reflections on history, our version.
Was she thrown overboard? We can hear Shalyapin's voice from the distant past, and he tells a story about the even more distant past. This is the footage of the first Russian film entitled Stenka Razin. From beyond the island to the river sail Stenka Razin's ships. Then the dramatic climax of this strange story starts. Volga, oh Volga! He throws her overboard. Unfortunately, the popular version is not correct. According to scientists, it was a different river. The princess was not Persian, and the main character was not a romantic either. Actually, this concept didn't let us see the real historical person behind all these things. It was the terrible secret of the river pirate Stenka Razin. Oddly enough, it involved Amsterdam and Holland, the Russian Volga, Atyrau in Kazakhstan, and even Brazil. He threw her overboard in the waves. There are a lot of legends, stories, poems, and films about it. He was going here to Nizhny Yaitsk town. This town is called Atyrau nowadays. Chapter 1. To the river, wide and free. The argument about whether he drowned the princess or not has continued for a few centuries. First, the story was mentioned in the memoirs, which were published in Amsterdam in 1676. Who said that only Venice was the city of canals? Amsterdam is a city of canals too, and it can compete with Venice. There are a lot of small and large canals here. In general, Amsterdam is a capital on the water.
В общем, Амстердам – это такая столица на воде.
The Dutch were considered masters of maritime affairs. Russia needed them in the 17th century and was glad to invite them to serve. Hence, it wasn't surprising that Dutch citizens found themselves in the expanse of the Caspian Sea and up the Ural River. The story about the princess was known from the accounts of two eyewitnesses who had arrived from Holland and had been captured by Stenka Razin's gang. These Cossack robbers have caused a lot of harm and engaged in violence in the Caspian Sea for 3 years. A year ago, they took over His Majesty's city of Yaik and killed more than 8,000 Russians. They hung many people, including a German captain, by their legs and committed other evil deeds and violence. It is known that the Yaik Cossacks did not welcome the gang. Razin's kind is still used as an insult in the local dialect. He came here to ask the Cossacks to help him, but the Yaik Cossacks answered, "Listen to us, Stepan. Although you have authority, do not come here because we will not follow you anywhere, otherwise you will lose." He looked at them and came back. It was 1667. Razin's rebellion had not started yet, and it was just another raid. Razin approached the town of Guryev and asked to let him enter a church to pray, and he was allowed to. Stefan Rusin came in the town with a small detachment, and his troops followed them. Even with the help of this detachment, he managed to conquer the town of Guryev. It happened because his guardsmen incited the Streltsy, who guarded the town, to influence their army commander. As a result, he opened the town gates, and it was conquered in a bloodless way. Although the city was conquered without blood, he made many people shed blood. He hanged them and impaled them. Although, according to eyewitnesses, Razin was not very cruel, it was just such an epoch. The following evidence was given by Ludwig Fabricius, a Dutch citizen born in Brazil. While he behaved as a cruel tyrant, he kept the Cossacks in order. Stenka tried to eradicate curses and rude words. Incidentally, the Russians and other people use such words so that you become terrified when you hear them. Besides, he tried to get rid of debauchery and theft. If a person stole anything, his shirt was tied above his head, sand was put there, and he was thrown in the water. I saw that a Cossack was suspended by his legs for poking a young woman in her stomach. The Cossacks had very strong discipline in that period. At that time, Stefan Rusin was about 40. In fact, he was a very unusual person. It remains rather unclear who he considered himself to be. He belonged to the old steppe aristocracy, descendants of the horde aristocrats. He was born to a prosperous family in Zimoveyska village, near the Don. A century later, another rebel named Pugachev was born there too. Sarasman was the first ataman of the Don Cossacks. His name was not Russian but Turkic. The Cossack word is derived from the Turkic language and means a brave person who left his tribe and gained complete freedom.
Stefan Razin,
He practiced two different religions. Most likely, he was both circumcised and baptized. Such cases occurred among the steppe population. Bogdan Khmelnytsky is considered another example of this. Such things happened in the steppe.
для степи вот такая смесь представлений, она была, не исключением, такое было.
They didn't consider themselves Russians, Slavs, or representatives of another ethnic group. They considered themselves Cossacks.
Другого этноса. Они именно считали себя казаками.
Stepan was called Tuma, which meant a son of a Cossack and an Asian woman. In addition, they said that his father was an adherent of a non-Christian religion.
Он же из Тумы.
He was from Tuma, and in Cossack fairy tales, he was portrayed as a sorcerer. For example, it was said he could throw a handkerchief on the water, sit in it, and swim.
Если чародея, вот он мог платок кинуть на воду, сесть, поплыть и так далее.
He had a felt carpet which he used to fly in the air and swim in the water. Legends have it that he worshipped the river spirit. According to historians, such objects as floating felt and magic stone, which enabled Razin to rule the natural powers, were typical of Turkic motifs. Of course, his sorcery was an exaggeration, but he really did hold a special position. Razin was the head of a few embassies in Persia and Kalmykia. In any case, he was a very important person who was famous in Moscow. According to a Russian chronicle, Stenka was literate and could speak 4 languages. According to a different source, the ataman spoke up to 8 languages. For instance, a Swedish diplomat said that the pirates' ataman spoke Farsi and Turkic languages. Chapter 2. To avoid discord. In Astrakhan, we visited a Cossack camp. Razin was on a ship where he was enjoying himself, drinking and brawling. Jan Strace wrote about it as if he had been there and seen everything himself. He was with a Persian princess, who he had kidnapped together with her brother. He gave the young man to Voivode Pozorovsky as a gift and made the princess his lover. He was drunk and in a frenzy when he addressed the Volga, saying, "The river, you are beautiful. You gave me a lot of gold, silver and treasure." After this, he grabbed the poor princess's neck with one hand and her legs with the other and threw her into the river. It happened somewhere near Astrakhan after the campaign against Persia, which Razin started in Yaitsk. He took a lot of boats, persuaded the Cossacks, crossed the Ural, broke out of the encirclement, and from there went towards Persia by sea. After that, pages of many works were dedicated to the Persian princess. Alexander Pushkin was the first who changed the lines written by the Romantic Dutchman. The memoirs by Strace have been translated into Russian by that time. Alexandre Dumas used this in his work too. However, according to the version he had been told in Astrakhan, the nobleman's daughter had eloped with Razin. At night, when the bandit suffered his first defeat, he called the girl and helped her to approach the edge of a precipice. He clasped her to his chest for the last time, and their lips met. During their long last kiss, he pierced her heart with his dagger. However, it's unlikely that Jan Strais, thanks to whom all these poetic works were written, could have witnessed what happened. He wrote his memoirs much later, and his main aim was to attract clients, which is why he could resort to lying. Only the fact that the Persian Shah's son was captured was documented, while nothing was said about any Persian princess anywhere, despite the fact that Razin's people robbed a lot. They captured merchants, tradesmen, ambassadors, robbed various people, including Russian, Persian, and other merchants. Incidentally, Razin left Strais alive, because the latter was a master of shipbuilding. Strais was an adventurer who undoubtedly was an immensely talented writer, and he wrote memoirs like many other writers of that time. He simply rewrote various extracts from other authors' works, changing and embellishing them creatively. In addition, he claimed that he witnessed the events, which was not true. Chapter 3. A thunderstorm is about to break. Before going into the Caspian Sea, Stenka sacrificed a beautiful and noble Tatar maiden in quite an unusual way. He'd taken her captive a year ago, and until that day shared his bed with her. The majority of scientists tend to prefer the version provided by Dutchman Ludwig Fabricius, whose memoirs only became widely known in the middle of the 20th century, which is why they did not get so much literary publicity. His memoirs were less bright and written less skillfully. In general, they were similar to a report. There's a great difference between the two Dutchmen's testimonies. According to Fabricius, this event happened a year earlier, before the Persian campaign, and the girl wasn't Persian at all. A legend has it that this occurrence took place here, on the bank of the Ural River near Atirau. Previously, this town was called Nizhny Yaitsk.
Тогда это назывался Нижний Яицкий городок.
As for the legends and Fabricius's work, the circumstances and resources for the evil deed were different. However, Fabricius based his work on hearsay as well. He got up early in the morning, gave the poor princess her best dress to put on, and said that at night he had seen the water god Gorinovich, who was the lord of the Yaik River. The water god had reproached him for not keeping his promise, although he had helped Stenka to get so much money. Then, according to the book, he grabbed the poor woman and threw her into the river, saying, "My protector, Yaik Gorinovich, take the best I have. I keep my promise." In this way, Stenka Razin performed a sacrifice which corresponded with the legends, saying that he was a sorcerer and a pagan. The god's name is Gorinich, which relates to the word Gora, meaning mountain, because the river has its source on the slopes of the Ural Mountains, and Yaik derives from a Turkic word meaning wide. The Turkic people worship mountains and water to a great extent. Who was that enigmatic Turkic princess? According to one version, she was Tatar Prince Alay's daughter. In the summer of 1667, Razin's people made a sortie from Yaitsk and defeated the prince. Razin spent the winter with the princess in the town. However, it wasn't the only foray, because the Cossacks often conducted bandit raids and kidnapped women.
Не хватало женщин. И
In the beginning, there weren't enough women, and Cossacks kidnapped women in the Kazakh steppe in order to marry them.
умыкали женщин с казахской степи для того, чтобы создать свои семьи.
As for families, Fabricius mentioned the following, that women gave birth to a thief's son and sent him to Astrakhan to bring up his son as a Christian and sent him 1,000 rubles. Epilogue. Let's sing a great song. There are some other versions too. She could have been a Nogai or Kalmyk noblewoman, a Kyrgyz Kazakh Tsarevna, or even a Yaitsk Cossack woman. Besides, some legends have it that the princess decided to commit suicide herself in order to save her beloved husband Stefan. According to other legends, 2 girls were drowned. Probably there were more of them. It is supposed that the sacrifices could be performed in the Volga, Ural, Don, rivers, or the Caspian Sea. However, nothing was said about it in the death warrant, where Stepan's crimes were listed. Probably nobody threw the girl into the river. Most likely, she brought up Razin's son in peace and died a natural death afterwards.